Hey, horror fans. Before you wander too far, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment with your city and what time you're watching. This helps YouTube bring you more bone-chilling tales like these. Tonight, we're dusting off the forgotten roads to bring you 8 true ghost town horror stories, uncovered from the darkest corners of Reddit. Urban explorers, road trippers, and thrill seekers share the terrifying things they encountered in places long left behind, ghosts of the past, buildings that feel too alive, and towns where the silence feels like it's watching you. From crumbling saloons to deserted main streets, these stories will make you think twice before stepping into a town that time forgot. So, pack your gear, watch your step, and let's get into it, because some towns may be empty, but they're not uninhabited. Story 1. The Curse of Bodie, a town lost to shadows and stars. In the high, lonely hills of California, where the wind howls like a wolf left to die, sits Bodie, a ghost town that time forgot. Born in 1859, when waterman Bodie struck gold, it grew fast, a wild place of miners, dreamers, and outlaws. By the 1870s, over 8,000 people filled its streets, their shouts echoing from saloons, churches, and rickety homes. Gunfights sparked in the dust, men died over cards, and fever took the young. The mines gave riches but demanded blood. Collapses, explosions, and bad air stole lives. By the 1880s, the gold dried up, fires gutted buildings, and folks left, chasing new dreams. Now, Bodie stands frozen, its wooden shells sagging under sun and snow, windows like empty eyes staring at the Sierra Nevada. Bodie's not just quiet, it's cursed. Park rangers get letters from folks who took a nail, a stone, or a shard of glass, begging to return it. Bad luck follows. Thieves' cars crash, homes burn, loved ones sicken. One man, after pocketing a rusted can, lost his job, saw his dog die, and felt shadows watching him at night. He mailed it back with a note. Take it. The curse is real. The rangers nod, knowing Bodie guards its own. Ghosts walk here too. In the old schoolhouse, children's laughter rings when the desks sit empty. A teacher's ghost paces, her chalky hands brushing visitors' arms. The Methodist church, its steeple stark against the sky, holds a tragic bride, Rosie, whose husband died in a mine. She wanders in her wedding gown, her sobs carried on the wind. But Bodie's terror runs deeper than ghosts. The mines dug too far, waking things not of this world, vast, uncaring forces that watch from the stars or stir in the earth. At night, the sky opens wide, stars glaring like eyes of gods who don't care. Bodie is a place where the gothic, the cosmic, and the horrific collide. A town that traps the living in its dead embrace. The sun was sinking behind the hills, painting Bodie's ruins gold and red when Mia and Lucas arrived. Mia, a college student with a love for old places, clutched her sketchbook, her pencil ready to catch the town's decay. Lucas, her older brother, carried a camera and a smirk, here to humor her but skeptical of ghost stories. It was June, the air warm but sharp at this altitude, 8,000 feet above sea level. They'd driven from Reno, drawn by tales of Bodie's curse and its haunted streets. It's just a creepy old town, Lucas said, kicking a pebble down the dirt road. People make up stories to scare tourists. Mia shook her head, her dark hair catching the fading light. You read the letters online. People take stuff, and bad things happen. That's not just stories. Coincidence, Lucas said, but his eyes scanned the empty street. The main drag stretched before them, lined with weathered buildings, the saloon with its broken windows, the general store with a faded sign, the jail where outlaws once rotted. The schoolhouse stood at the far end, its bell tower leaning like it might fall. The air felt heavy, like it held secrets too big to breathe. They started at the church, its wooden steps creaking under their weight. Inside, dust floated in beams of light, and pews sat crooked, as if waiting for a congregation that never came. Mia sketched the altar, its cross tilted, while Lucas snapped photos. "This place gives me the chills," he admitted, his voice low. "But it's just old wood and wind." Mia didn't answer. She felt eyes on her, not from Lucas, but from somewhere else. She turned, seeing only shadows in the corners. "Let's check the schoolhouse," she said, eager to move. The schoolhouse was smaller, its walls lined with faded maps and broken slates. Desks sat in neat rows, as if kids might return. Mia ran her fingers along one, feeling carved initials under dust. "Kids sat here 100 years ago," she whispered. "Can you imagine?" Lucas aimed his camera at a chalkboard, its surface cracked, but still bearing faint letters. "Be good." He laughed. Creepy teacher vibes. But as he clicked, a giggle echoed, high and childlike, from the back of the room. They froze. "You heard that, right?" Mia asked, her heart racing. "Probably a bird," Lucas said, but he stepped closer to her. The giggle came again, joined by another, then a soft scrape, like shoes on wood. Mia's flashlight swept the room, finding nothing but dust and shadows. "Let's go," she said, her voice tight. Outside, the sky had darkened, stars poking through like pinpricks in a black curtain. They headed to the Kane house, a big home where a wealthy miner once lived. Its windows were boarded, but the door hung open, swaying in the breeze. Inside, the air smelled of rot and old cloth. Furniture lay scattered, chairs tipped over, a table split in half. Mia sketched a cracked mirror, its surface cloudy, but reflecting her face too clearly. "This place feels wrong," she said. Lucas nodded, his camera forgotten. "Yeah, like we're being watched." They didn't see the figure at first. Woman in a white dress, standing in the hallway. Her hair was wild, her eyes black as coal. Mia gasped, dropping her sketchbook. The woman vanished, but her voice lingered, soft and sad. "Leave what belongs here." Lucas grabbed Mia's arm. "What was that?" "I don't know," Mia whispered, her hands shaking. "But I think that was Rosie." They stumbled outside, the night now thick around them. The stars seemed too bright, too close, like they were leaning down to watch. The wind carried a low hum, not human, not animal, something deeper, from the earth itself. Mia's skin prickled. "We should leave," she said. "Not yet," Lucas said, his voice stubborn. "We came to see the town. Let's check the jail." The jail was a squat building, its bars rusted, but intact. Inside, cells lined the walls, their doors creaking. A rope hung from a beam in one, swaying though the air was still. Lucas raised his camera, but Mia grabbed his wrist. "Don't," she said. "Something's here." As she spoke, the rope twitched, then swung hard, like someone had kicked it. A shadow moved in the cellar, man, tall and thin, his neck bent, at a wrong angle, a noose tied around it. His eyes locked on them, glowing faintly in the dark. Mia screamed, pulling Lucas back. They ran, not stopping until they reached the street. "What the hell was that?" Lucas gasped, his face pale. "I don't know," Mia said, her voice breaking. "But we need to go." They headed for their car, parked at the town's edge, but the air grew colder, the hum louder. It wasn't just winded, it was words, garbled and ancient, coming from below their feet. Mia tripped, her hand landing on a small stone, smooth and warm. Without thinking, she slipped it into her pocket, a keepsake. Lucas didn't notice, his eyes on the darkening hills. They camped that night, too shaken to drive the winding roads in the dark. Their tent sat in a clearing, the fire casting long shadows. The stars above were wrong too many, too bright, moving in ways stars shouldn't. Mia swore she saw shapes in them, vast and formless, like clouds with eyes. The hum followed them, rising from the ground, making her teeth ache. "Do you hear that?" she asked. Lucas nodded, his face tight. "It's the mines. They dug too deep." Mia remembered the stories miners finding strange things in the shafts. Bones that weren't human, rocks that pulsed like hearts. One man, Jake, fell into a deep shaft in 1878. He came back raving about voids and whispers, his eyes wild. He vanished in a storm, but his screams still rode the wind. Mia shivered, clutching the stone in her pocket. Sleep didn't come easy. Mia dreamed of Rosie, her wedding gown stained with dirt, her hands clawing at Mia's face. "Give it back," she hissed. Lucas woke shouting, saying a man with a noose stood over him, grinning. They packed at dawn, desperate to leave. Back in Reno, the curse followed. Mia's sketches turned, dark eyes in the sky, shapes in the earth, Rosie's face over and over. The stone in her pocket felt heavier, warm even in the cold. Lucas's camera broke, but the photos it held were worse. Every shot showed shadows that weren't there, faces in windows, a man with a noose in every frame. Mia's car crashed a week later, a tire blowing on a clear road. Lucas got sick, a fever that wouldn't break. At night, they both heard footsteps, saw shapes in mirrors that vanished when they turned. Mia mailed the stone back to Bodie, with a letter begging forgiveness. The Rangers added it to their pile of cursed returns. The bad luck eased, but the dreams didn't stop. Mia saw Rosie, heard the hum, felt the stars watching. Lucas burned his photos, but the faces lingered in his mind. Bodie's horror is meant. There's the gothic tragedy of Rosie, married one day, widowed the next. Her husband died in a mine collapse, his body never found. She wandered Bodie in her gown, hair loose, until she faded away, her spirit tied to the church where she prayed for his return. Her sobs echo on full moons, her hands cold on those who linger. The cosmic dread is heavier. The mines broke something, woke something. Miners spoke of tunnels that led nowhere, walls that bled, voices that weren't human. The stars over Bodie feel alive, their light, cold and cruel, like they're judging the ants below. One camper, in 1990, saw shapes in the sky, huge, shifting like smoke with mines. He ran, leaving his tent, and never spoke of Bodie again. The raw horror cuts deepest. Doors slam in empty houses. Footsteps circle tents, leaving no tracks. Mirrors show faces that aren't yours. A group in 2008 saw a man hanging in the jail, his body swinging, but when they blinked, he was gone, only the rope left moving. Another visitor felt fingers on his neck, turning to see a woman with black eyes, her voice a hiss. "Leave. Bodie is beautiful in its ruined golden hills, endless skies, buildings like bones of a lost age. But at night, it turns. The shadows stretch, the stars glare, the ground hums with something ancient and angry. Visitors leave changed, their voices hushed, their stories wild. It's wonderful, they say, meaning the fear, the awe, the brush with something bigger than themselves. Bodie doesn't just haunt, it claims. Mia and Lucas never returned. The stone was back, but Bodie wasn't done. Mia's sketches still show eyes she can't explain. Lucas hears footsteps some nights, sees ropes in his dreams. Bodie waits, its curse alive, its ghosts awake, its stars watching forever. Story 2, Annabelle's Watch in St. Elmo, echoes from the mountains, high in the Colorado Rockies. Where the air bites and the peaks stab the sky, lies St. Elmo, a ghost town frozen in time. Founded in 1880, it roared to life with miners chasing silver and gold. Nearly 2,000 souls filled its wooden streets, their picks ringing against stone, their laughter spilling from saloons. A general store buzzed with trade, a dance hall spun with fiddles, and a small church offered hope against brutal winters. Trains chugged through, hauling dreams and ore, but by the 1920s, the mines ran dry. The trains stopped, Families packed up, leaving homes to sag under snow and time. Today, St. Elmo stands as a relic, its buildings leaning like tired old men. Windows dark and streets silent, but for the wind's mournful howl. Yet, St. Elmo is not empty. It breathes with secrets, whispers of the past that cling to the pines, and echo in the valleys. The most persistent tale is of Annabelle Stark, a woman who became the town's final guardian. The Stark family stayed long after others fled, running the general store and keeping St. Elmo alive. Annabelle, with her sharp eyes and steady hands, was the heart of it. She died in 1960, but folks swear she never left. Visitors see her shadow in the store's dusty windows, a tall figure in a long dress, her gaze cutting through the dusk. Doors slam when strangers linger too long, as if she's saying, "This is my town, you don't belong." The horror of St. Elmo weaves together the cosmic, the gothic, and the raw terror of the unknown. It's a place where the mountains loom like ancient gods, the stars burn cold, and the ghosts hold grudges. This is the story of Annabelle's Watch, a tale of duty, loss, and the eternal weight of a town that refuses to die. The wind screamed down Chalk Creek Canyon, carrying flecks of snow that stung Ellie's face. She pulled her scarf tighter, her boots crunching on the frozen path leading into St. Elmo. It was late October, the sky a bruised purple, and the air smelled of pine and something older, something like damp earth and forgotten promises. Ellie, a photographer in her late 20s, had come to capture the town's eerie beauty for a magazine. Her camera hung heavy around her neck, and her backpack held a sleeping bag, a flashlight, and a notebook for sketches. She'd heard the stories, ghosts, curses, Annabelle, but she laughed them off. Old towns have old tales, she'd told her editor. It's just atmosphere. Her friend Sam trudged beside her, his breath puffing in clouds. He was a history buff, tagging along to dig into St. Elmo's past. "This place was big once," he said, pointing at the crooked sign reading St. Elmo. "Pop, zero, miners, merchants, even a telegraph office. All gone now. But Annabelle Stark, she's the real story. Stayed till the end. Kept the store running. People say she's still here, watching." Ellie rolled her eyes. "You believe that? It's just wind and creaky boards." Sam grinned, but his eyes flicked to the darkening pines. "We'll see." They reached the main street, a dirt road lined with weathered buildings. The general store stood at the center, its sign faded but readable, Stark and Sons. The windows were cloudy, the door slightly ajar, as if inviting them in. Next to it, the old hotel sagged, its porch sagging like a frown. A schoolhouse sat further down, its bell tower silent but ominous. The air felt heavy, like the mountains were pressing down, and the stars above glittered too brightly, too close. "Let's start with the store," Ellie said, snapping a photo. The flash lit up the windows, and for a split second, she thought she saw a face Belle sharp, staring back. She blinked, and it was gone. "Trick of the light," she muttered, but her stomach twisted. Inside, the store smelled of dust and old leather. Shelves lined the walls, empty except for a few rusted cans and broken bottles. A counter ran along one side, a cracked mirror behind it reflecting their dim shapes. Sam ran his fingers along the wood, reading faded labels. "Annabelle ran this place alone after her brothers died," he said. "She was tough, kept it going through blizzards, bandits, everything." Ellie nodded, framing a shot of the counter. As she clicked, the door slammed shut. She jumped, her camera slipping. Sam spun around. "Wind?" he asked, but his voice shook. "No windows open," Ellie whispered. The air grew colder, her breath visible now. She stepped toward the door, but it wouldn't budge. "Sam, help me." He pushed, but the door held fast, like something was holding it from the other side. A low creak came from the back of the store, where a staircase led to the upstairs rooms. Ellie's flashlight beam shook as she aimed it. Shadows danced on the walls, long and thin, like fingers stretching. "Did you hear that?" Sam whispered. Before Ellie could answer, a voice, soft, sharp, female, cut through the silence. "Leave what belongs here." Ellie's heart pounded. She grabbed Sam's arm. "That's not funny. I didn't say anything," he hissed. The voice came again, closer now, from the stairs. "This is my town." Footsteps followed, slow and deliberate, descending one step at a time. Ellie's flashlight caught a glimpse of Fabrica black dress, frayed at the hem, moving in the dark. She screamed, dropping the light. It rolled, casting wild beams across the room. Sam yanked her toward the door, pounding on it. "Open, damn it." The footsteps stopped, but the air grew colder, like ice on their skin. Ellie turned, and she was an Abel Stark, or what was left of her. Her face was pale as bone, her eyes two black pits, her dress hanging like a shroud. She stood at the base of the stairs, one hand clutching a rusted key, the other reaching out. "Stay," Annabelle whispered, her voice like wind through dead leaves. Ellie stumbled back, hitting the counter. A bottle fell, shattering. Sam grabbed a chair and swung it at the door, cracking the wood. "Go," he yelled. They shoved through, tumbling into the street, the cold night air hitting them like a slap. The door slammed behind them, the lock clicking. They ran, not stopping until they reached the edge of town. Ellie's chest heaved, her camera still clutched in her shaking hands. Sam looked back, his face white. "That was her," he said. "Annabelle." Ellie didn't argue. She'd felt it, the weight of those eyes, the pull of something ancient and angry. They camped that night in a clearing, too scared to stay in town. As they sat by the fire, the stars seemed to pulse, too large, too alive. Ellie swore she heard whispers in the wind, not human, not earthly, something vast, older than the mountains, speaking in tongues she couldn't grasp. The next morning, they returned to St. Elmo, needing proof it wasn't a dream. The store's door was locked tight, no sign of their struggle. But Ellie's camera held a surprise. One photo, taken inside, showed the counter and mirror. In the reflection, clear as day, stood Annabelle, her black eyes staring straight at the lens. Behind her, shapes moved formless, massive, like shadows of things too big for the world. Sam found a story later, buried in old records. Annabelle's brothers died in a mine collapse, her parents from fever. She stayed, bound by duty, but the town took more than her family. Miners spoke of voices from the shafts, calls from deep earth that drove men mad. One man, a prospector named Caleb, wrote of eyes in the dark, bigger than stars, watching from below. He vanished in 1890. His journal found near a cliff. Ellie and Sam left St. Elmo, but the town followed them. Ellie dreamed of Annabelle standing in her apartment, whispering, "You took something." She checked her bag, nothing missing, but the feeling stayed. Sam heard footsteps outside his window at night, no tracks in the morning. They mailed a letter to the rangers, begging forgiveness for disturbing the town. But the dreams didn't stop. St. Elmo's horror is layered. There's the gothic tragedy of Annabelle, chained to her store by love and loss, her spirit a prisoner of duty. Her parents' graves lie behind the church, unmarked but heavy with sorrow. She buried them herself, her hands blistered, her heart broken. Her ghost carries that weight, her wails blending with the wind on moonless nights. Then there's the cosmic dread. The Rockies feel alive, their peaks like the spines of sleeping giants. The stars above St. Elmo don't twinkle, they stare. Hikers tell of losing time, hours gone in a blink, or hearing chants from cliffs where no one stands. Some say the mines woke something ancient, a force that sees humans as dust, fleeting and small. One camper, years ago, swore he saw shapes in the sky, huge, formless, moving like smoke but alive, their whispers pulling him toward the edge of a ravine. The raw horror hits hardest. Visitors hear children laughing in the schoolhouse, but the desks are empty, coated in dust. A man camping in 2005 woke to Annabelle at his tent, her cold hand on his chest, whispering, "Stay." He fled, leaving his gear, never returning. Another group saw lights in the hotel, figures dancing in windows, but the building was locked, no power for miles. Footsteps follow you in St. Elmo, crunching snow where no one walks. Shadows move in the trees, too tall, too thin to be human. The town's beauty hides its terror. The mountains glow at sunset, the air crisp and clean, but at night, the world shifts. The stars feel closer, the dark deeper. Annabelle's watch never ends. She guards St. Elmo, not just from thieves, but from something worse, something that miners stirred, something that waits in the earth, patient and vast. Visitors leave with stories, their voices hushed, their eyes wide. It's wonderful, they say, meaning the fear, the awe, the brush with something beyond. Ellie never went back. Her photo of Annabelle sits in a drawer, too heavy to share. Sam avoids mountains now, says the stars look wrong. Story 3. Centralia's burning hell, fire below. Spirits above in the heart of Pennsylvania's coal country, where the earth itself burns with a fury that never sleeps. Lies Centralia, a town forsaken by time and swallowed by fire. Born in 1841. It grew on the black blood of coal, with over 1,000 souls carving lives from the dark veins beneath the hills. Miners toiled in suffocating shafts, their lamps flickering against walls that could collapse any moment. Homes lined tidy streets, churches rang with Sunday bells, and saloons buzzed with rough laughter. But in 1962, a careless spark in a trash pit ignited the coal seams below, and the fire took hold. Unstoppable, it burned still, a hidden beast beneath the ground, sending smoke through cracks, heating the earth until it blisters boots. Roads twist and buckle, trees wither to ash, and houses stand empty, their paint peeling like dead skin. By the 1980s, most residents fled, driven out by poison air and sinking ground. A handful cling to their homes, but Centralia is a ghost town. Its pulse, a relentless inferno. Centralia's horror is layered, a tangle of gothic decay, cosmic dread, and raw, primal fear. The fire below is no accident, it's a living force, eternal and hungry, mocking human attempts to tame it. Above, ghosts of miners wander, their blackened forms trapped in tunnels that became their graves. The town's curse is not just the flames, but something older, woken by the digging, watching from the smoke and the cold, vast stars. This is the story of Centralia's burning hell, where the earth despises the living, and the dead demand their due. Sarah gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles white against the cracked vinyl. The road to Centralia was a jagged scar through gray hills, lined with skeletal trees clawing at a bruised September sky. The air carried a faint sting of sulfur, like the breath of something rotten. Sarah, a journalist in her 30s, had come to write a feature on America's ghost towns, chasing the human side of Centralia's collapse. Beside her sat Tom, a geologist friend, his laptop glowing with maps of the underground fire. His glasses reflected the screen's light as he traced the blazes spread. "This fire's a monster," he said, pointing at a graph of heat spikes. "Miles of coal seems burning, maybe for centuries. It's like the Earth's fighting back." Sarah nodded, her recorder clipped to her jacket. "I want the stories why people left, why some stayed, and the ghosts. Readers love that stuff." Tom laughed, short and sharp. "Ghosts. It's just fumes and heat playing tricks on your brain." Sarah didn't push back, but she'd scoured forums online, reading of miners seen in the fog, screams rising from the ground, shadows moving wrong. Centralia wasn't just burning, it was alive with secrets. They arrived at dusk, the light bleeding red across a town that looked chewed up and spat out. Houses sagged, their windows boarded or shattered, some half collapsed, like broken bones. A church loomed on a hill, its steeple leaning as if tired, its doors bolted shut. The main street was gone, detoured around a steaming crack where Route 61 once ran. Smoke curled from the earth, thin and gray, like fingers reaching. The air burned their throats, and Sarah coughed, tugging her scarf over her mouth. "This place feels dead," she said, her voice muffled. "Worse," Tom replied, kicking a rock. It skittered into a fissure, vanishing in a puff of heat. "It's angry." They parked near the old fire hall, its red paint chipped, windows dark. Sarah slung her camera around her neck, its weight familiar, while Tom carried a heat sensor and a notebook. They started at the church, climbing its cracked steps. Inside, dust hung in the air, lit by slants of dying light. Pews sat crooked, hymnals scattered like fallen leaves. Sarah snapped photos, the flash glinting off a rusted cross. "Creepy," she muttered, zooming in on a stained glass window. Its colors faded, but showing a miner with hollow eyes. Tom ran his hand along a pew, stirring dust. This was the heart of the town. People prayed here, hoping the mines wouldn't take their men. Sarah nodded, but her skin prickled. She felt watched, not by Tom, but by something in the shadows. She turned, catching a flicker in the glass of face, charred and eyeless, gone when she blinked. Her heart jumped. "Did you see that?" Tom frowned, looking over. "See what?" "Nothing," she said, shaking her head. But her hands shook as she adjusted her camera. They moved to the old schoolhouse, its roof sagging, windows like empty sockets. Inside, desks stood in rows, covered in dust, some carved with names from decades past. A chalkboard hung on the wall, its surface cracked but holding faint words. "Stay safe." Sarah shivered, framing a shot. Kids sat here, not knowing the ground was burning. Tom nodded, checking his sensor. "It's 200 degrees under us right now, hot enough to cook." As he spoke, a low moan echoed like wind in a tunnel, but deeper, human. Sarah froze, her camera slipping. "Tell me you heard that." Tom's face tightened. "Probably just gas escaping. Vents are everywhere." The moan came again, joined by a scrape, like boots dragging on stone. Sarah's flashlight swept the room, finding only dust and shadows. But the air grew heavier, colder, despite the heat below. "We should go," she said, her voice tight. "Not yet," Tom said, stubborn. "Let's check the Oddfellows' hall." The hall was a brick husk, its sign barely readable. Inside, the air smelled of ash and rot, the floor littered with broken chairs and faded banners. A staircase led to a dark upper room, its door half off, its hinges. Sarah's light caught a glint something metal, maybe a lodge ring, lying in the dust. Without thinking, she picked it up, slipping it into her pocket. Tom didn't notice, busy scanning the floor for heat cracks. They stepped into the upper room, and the door slammed shut behind them. Sarah yelped, spinning around. "Wind?" Tom asked, but his voice shook. "No windows," Sarah whispered. The air turned icy, her breath clouding. A creak came from the stairs, slow and heavy, like footsteps climbing. Her flashlight flickered, then steadied, showing a shadow on the wall tall, blackened, with arms too long. A voice rasped, low and dry, like burning leaves. "Give it back." Sarah's heart pounded. "Tom, what's that?" "I didn't hear anything," he said, but he grabbed her arm, pulling her to the door. It wouldn't open, stuck as if nailed shut. The footsteps grew louder, closer, and the smell of smoke thickened. Sarah's light caught a figure at the top of the stairs, a man, or what was left of him. His skin was charred, his eyes glowing red, his hands reaching. "You took what's ours," he hissed. Sarah screamed, dropping her flashlight. It rolled, casting wild beams. Tom kicked the door, splintering wood, and they tumbled out into the night, the air hitting them like a slap. The door slammed again, the lock clicking. They ran, not stopping until they reached the car, their breaths ragged. "What was that?" Tom gasped, his glasses fogged. Sarah couldn't speak, her mind stuck on those red eyes, that voice. "I don't know," she managed, "but we're not staying." They drove to a field outside town, too shaken to navigate. The dark roads. Their tent went up fast, a small fire crackling, but the night felt wrong. The stars above were too bright, too many, moving in patterns that hurt to watch. Sarah swore she saw shapes in them vast, formless, like smoke with minds. A hum rose from the ground, not wind but words, ancient and guttural, making her teeth ache. "You hear that?" she asked. Tom nodded, his face pale. "It's the fire. It's not just burning, it's alive." Sarah remembered the stories miners trapped in collapses, their screams echoing in sealed tunnels. One tale spoke of a man, Eli, who fell into a burning shaft in 1950. He came back raving about eyes in the dark, bigger than worlds, his mind broken. He vanished into the hills, but his cries linger in the fog. Sarah clutched the ring in her pocket, its weight like a stone. Sleep was impossible. Sarah dreamed of the charred man, his hands clawing her throat, his voice whispering, "Return." Tom woke, shouting, saying a figure stood over him, its face melted, its breath like ash. They packed at dawn, desperate to escape. Back in Harrisburg, the curse followed. Sarah's photos developed wrong. Every frame showed shadows that weren't there, faces in windows, red eyes in corners. Her car broke down, a tire shredding on a clear road. Tom fell ill, a cough that tasted of coal dust. At night, they heard moans, saw shapes in mirrors that vanished when they turned. Sarah found the ring in her pocket, now hot to the touch, and mailed it back to Centralia's post office with a note. "I'm sorry. Take it." The bad luck eased, but the dreams didn't. Sarah saw the charred man, heard the hum, felt the stars watching. Tom burned his notes, but the faces stayed in his mind. Centralia's horror is layered. There's the gothic tragedy of the town itself, its homes rotting like forgotten promises. A young couple, Mary and John, died in their house when gas seeped in. Their ghosts, now wandering, hand in hand, their sighs in the wind. The church holds their sorrow, its bells tolling on still nights, a dirge for the lost. The cosmic dread is heavier. The fire woke something ancient, a force that sees humans as fleas. Miners spoke of tunnels that bled, walls that pulsed, voices that drove men to jump into flames. The stars over Centralia don't twinkle, they judge, cold and vast, part of a universe that doesn't care. A camper in 1995 saw shapes in the sky, huge, shifting, like clouds with eyes. He fled, leaving his gear, and never spoke of Centralia again. The raw horror cuts deepest. Footsteps crunch in empty streets, leaving no tracks. Doors slam in abandoned homes. A boy, Todd, vanished into a sinkhole in 1981, his screams echoing years later. Visitors choke on fumes, hear scratches from below. A woman, in 2003, saw her dead father, his skin blackened, begging for water in the churchyard. Centralia is a wound, beautiful in its ruined smoking hills, silent streets, a church standing defiant. But at night, it turns. The smoke thickens, the stars glare, the ground hums with something old and angry. Visitors leave shaken, their voices low, their stories wild. It's wonderful, they say, meaning the fear, the awe, the touch of something beyond. Centralia doesn't just burn, it hates. Sarah never returned. Her photos sit in a locked drawer, too heavy to share. Tom avoids coal country, says the stars look wrong. Centralia waits, its fire alive, its ghosts awake, its sky watching forever. Story 4, Mona Belle's grave, in Rhyolite. Desert whispers of betrayal, in the scorched heart of Nevada's desert, where the sun bakes the earth to dust, and the wind carries a lonesome wail. lies Rhyolite, a ghost town crumbling under the weight of forgotten dreams. Born in 1904, when gold fever swept the land, it bloomed fast, a glittering oasis of banks, hotels, and even an opera house, all carved from the sand. Over 5,000 souls flocked here, their picks striking rock, their laughter filling saloons. But the gold ran thin, and by 1916, the town was bleeding out. Rails were torn up, buildings abandoned, and the desert reclaimed its own. Now Rhyolite stands as a ruin, its skeletal frames baking under a merciless sun, the bottle house glinting with eerie green glass, and the silence broken only by the crunch of gravel underfoot. Rhyolite's horror is steeped in betrayal and loss, none more tragic than the tale of Belle, a woman of the night whose life ended in blood. Shot by her lover in a jealous rage, she lies buried behind the old jail, her grave unmarked but heavy with sorrow. Her ghost wanders the ruins, her torn dress trailing, her eyes wild with grief. Men hear her cries, feel her cold hands pulling them toward the earth. But Rhyolite's terror runs deeper. The desert stretches endless, its vastness a cosmic void where stars glare like cold, uncaring gods. Miners dug too far, stirring ancient things in the sand forces that whisper madness to those who linger. This is the story of Belle's grave, a tale of gothic heartbreak, cosmic dread, and raw fear that grips the soul. The sun hung low, painting Rhyolite's ruins in shades of fire and shadow. Emily, a painter in her late 20s, adjusted her easel near the old train depot, her brushes ready to capture the town's decay. The desert air was dry, scratching her throat, and the silence felt heavy, like the world was holding its breath. Beside her stood Javier, her cousin, a history student with a notebook full of Rhyolite's tales. He'd dragged her here, chasing stories of gold and ghosts. This place was alive once, he said, squinting at the crumbling bank, its columns like broken teeth. Hotels, schools, even a stock exchange, all gone in a decade. Emily dipped her brush in red, sketching the depot's sagging roof. It's sad, but beautiful, like it's waiting for something. Javier grinned, but his eyes flicked to the horizon. Waiting, sure. But for what? You know about Belle, right? Killed by her man, buried out back. They say she's still here, crying for him. Emily rolled her eyes, but her brush paused. Ghost stories are just desert wind and imagination. Maybe, Javier said, but people swear they see her, and there's weirder stuff. Miners going mad, hearing voices from the ground. They worked as the light faded, Emily painting the bottle house, its walls made of glass, glinting like eyes. The air grew cooler, but the desert felt alive, the sand shifting under their feet. They moved to the old jail, a low building with rusted bars and a sagging roof. Behind it, a patch of dirt marked Belle's grave. No stone, just a faint outline in the dust. Emily set up her easel, drawn to the spot's quiet sorrow. This is her place, she said, sketching the jail's shadows stretching over the grave. Javier read from his notes. Mona was a saloon girl, loved by a miner named Frank. He shot her in 1908, jealous of another man. Buried her here, no marker, no prayers. Folks say she walks at night, looking for him. Emily's brush moved faster, catching the grave's outline. As she worked, a cold breeze stirred, carrying a faint sob. She froze, her heart thumping. Did you hear that? Javier looked up, his face pale. Wind, probably, but the sob came again, soft and broken, from the direction of the grave. Emily's flashlight swept the ground, finding nothing but sand. The air turned colder, her breath clouding. Javier, let's go, she said, her voice tight. Not yet, he said, stubborn. I want to see the old saloon. They crossed the street to the saloon, its doors gone, its floor littered with broken glass. The bar stood intact, dusty but solid, as if waiting for drinkers who'd never return. Emily's light caught a mirror behind the bar, its surface cracked, but reflecting their shapes. She stepped closer, and her reflection blurred, showing a woman in a torn dress, her hair wild, her eyes black pits. Emily gasped, stumbling back. "Javier, look." He turned, but the mirror showed only them. "What?" "She was their Mona," Emily whispered, her hands shaking. The sob came again, louder, from the back of the saloon. A shadow moved, quick and thin, darting into a side room. Javier grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the door, but it slammed shut before they reached it. The air grew heavy, smelling of smoke and flowers, like a funeral gone wrong. "Give it back," a voice whispered, soft but sharp, like a blade through silk. Emily's heart raced. She reached into her pocket, feeling a small stone she'd picked up near the grave without thinking. "I didn't mean to," she stammered, tossing it onto the floor. The door creaked open, and they ran, the desert night swallowing them. They stopped at the edge of town, panting, the stars above blazing too bright, too close. Emily swore she saw shapes in them, vast, formless, like clouds with minds. A hum rose from the ground, not wind but words, ancient and guttural, making her teeth ache. "What's that?" she asked, her voice trembling. Javier shook his head, his eyes wide. "The desert. It's not empty. Miners said they heard things, saw things in the mind's eyes in the dark, bigger than stars." Emily remembered the tales miners driven mad by whispers from the earth, claiming the sand hid things older than time. One man, Amos, wrote of a shaft that led to a void, where shadows moved and spoke. He vanished in 1910, his journal found. In the desert, pages scrawled with warnings. They watch. They wait. They camped in a clearing, too shaken to drive the dark roads. Their fire flickered, casting long shadows, but the stars felt wrong, pulsing in ways that hurt to see. Emily dreamed of Mona, her hands cold, her voice begging, "Find him." Javier woke, shouting, saying a woman stood over him, her dress dripping sand, her eyes burning. They packed at dawn, desperate to leave. Back in Las Vegas, the curse followed. Emily's paintings turned dark deserts with eyes, Mona's face in every stroke. The stone was gone, but her brushes felt heavy, like they moved on their own. Javier's notes were jumbled, words not his own, scrawled in margins. "She waits." His car broke down, a tire shredded on a clear road. At night, they heard sobs, saw shapes in mirrors that vanished when they turned. Emily mailed a letter to the rangers, apologizing for the stone, begging Mona to rest. The bad luck eased, but the dreams didn't stop. Emily saw Mona, heard the hum, felt the stars, watching. Javier burned his notes, but the words lingered in his mind. Rhyolite's horror is layered. There's the gothic tragedy of Mona Belle, betrayed by love, her spirit chained to a grave without a name. She loved Frank, but his jealousy turned to murder, his bullet stealing her breath. Her ghost wanders, her cries blending with the wind, her hands cold on those who stray too close. The cosmic dread is heavier. The desert is a void, its vastness crushing, its stars cold and cruel. Miners spoke of tunnels that bled, rocks that hummed, voices that drove men to walk into the sand and never return. The stars over Rhyolite don't twinkle, they judge, part of a universe that sees humans as dust. A hiker in 2000 saw shapes in the sky, huge, shifting like smoke with eyes. He fled, leaving his pack, and never spoke of Rhyolite again. The raw horror cuts deepest. Footsteps crunch in empty streets, leaving no tracks. Doors slam in abandoned buildings. A man in 2010 felt lips on his neck, turning to see Mona's decayed face, her voice a hiss. Your hiss. Another group heard laughter in the saloon, glasses clinking, but found only dust. Shadows move in the ruins, too tall, too thin, to be human. Rhyolite is a wound in the desert, beautiful in its ruined golden sands. Crumbling walls, a bottle house glinting like a dream, but at night, it turns. The shadows stretch, the stars glare, the ground hums with something ancient and angry. Visitors leave shaken, their voices low, their stories wild. It's wonderful, they say, meaning the fear, the awe, the touch of something beyond. Rhyolite doesn't just haunt, it claims. Emily never returned. Her paintings sit in a locked room, too heavy to show. Javier avoids desserts, says the stars look wrong. Rhyolite waits, it's sand alive, its ghosts awake, its sky watching forever. Story 5. Helltown's hidden monsters, forest of lies, and fear tucked in the thick woods of Ohio, where shadows twist and the air hums with secrets, lies Helltown, a place once called Boston Village. Born in the 1800s, it was a quiet farming town, with mills, homes, and a church, buzzing with simple life. But in the 1970s, the government bought it out to make a national park, forcing folks to leave. They left angry, scrawling curses on walls, smashing windows. The plan failed, and the town was left to rot, swallowed by forest. Now, its streets are overgrown, houses lean like drunkards, and the church's steeple pierces the fog with an cross painted in red. Rumors swirl Satanists hold rituals in the church. Chemical spills birthed a monster called the Peninsula Python, and ghosts of the displaced haunt the trees. Helltown's horror is a knot of gothic gloom, cosmic dread, and raw terror. The woods hide things that watch, their eyes glowing in the dark. The stars above seem too close, whispering truths too big for human minds. This is the story of Helltown's hidden monsters, where the forest lies, and fear takes root. The forest. Road to Helltown was a tangle of roots and mud, barely wide enough for Mia's old truck. It was late October, the sky a dull gray, leaves crunching under tires. Mia, a college dropout turned blogger, gripped the wheel, her camera bouncing on the passenger seat. She'd come to write about Helltown's legends for her paranormal site, chasing clicks and chills. Beside her sat Ethan, her best friend, a skeptic with a flashlight and a smirk. "This place is overhyped," he said, scrolling on his phone. "Satanists, snakes, ghosts, it's all made up to scare kids." Mia shook her head, her ponytail swaying. "People have seen things. Lights in the church, shapes in the woods, and that python folks swear it's real." Ethan snorted. "A mutant snake? Come on. It's just a creepy forest and some old houses." They parked at the edge of town, where a rusted sign read Boston Township. The air smelled of wet leaves and something sharp, like metal left in rain. Helltown was a ghost, its buildings hidden by trees, their roofs caved in, windows black. The church stood out, its white paint peeling, the upside-down cross stark against the steeple. A school bus sat abandoned on a side road, its doors hanging open, tires flat. Mia snapped a photo, the flash cutting through the dusk. "This place feels wrong," she said, her voice low. "Feels like a dump," Ethan said, but his eyes darted to the trees, where shadows seemed to shift. They started at the church, its steps sagging under their weight. Inside, the air was cold, smelling of mold and wax. Pews lay overturned, hymnals torn, and graffiti covered the walls. "Leave in red paint, they see in black." Mia's camera clicked, capturing a cracked altar. Ethan shone his flashlight, the beam catching a glint in the corner, a rusted knife, half buried in dust. He picked it up, turning it over. "Weird," he muttered, slipping it into his pocket. "Don't take that," Mia said, her stomach twisting. "You know the story stakes something from Helltown, and bad things follow." Ethan rolled his eyes. "It's just junk." A low creak echoed from the rafters, like wood bending under weight. Mia's flashlight swept up, finding nothing but cobwebs. "Did you hear that?" she asked. "Old building," Ethan said, but his voice was tight. They moved to the school bus, its yellow paint faded to a sickly green. Inside, seats were ripped, windows smeared with grime. Mia's light caught scratches on the ceiling, deep and claw-like. "Kids used to ride this," she said, her voice soft. "Some say it was a murder scene." Ethan scoffed, but his hand stayed near his flashlight. As they stepped out, a hiss cut through the air, low and guttural from the trees. Mia froze, her heart pounding. "That's not wind." Ethan's beam swept the forest, catching a glimpse, yellow and slitted, too big for any animal. They blinked and were gone. "Probably a coyote," he said, but he grabbed her arm, pulling her back to the road. The air grew heavier, the forest darker. As they headed to the old cemetery, its stones, tilted and mossy. Names were faded, but one stood out: Elijah, 1972. No last name, just taken by the woods. Mia knelt, snapping a photo, but her camera beeped, battery dead despite a full charge. "That's not right," she said, shaking it. A whisper came from the trees, soft but clear. "You took what's ours." Mia spun, her flashlight shaking. "Ethan, tell me you heard that." He nodded, his face pale. "Let's go." They hurried back toward the truck, but the forest seemed to shift, paths twisting, trees closer than before. The hiss came again, louder, joined by a rustle, like something heavy dragging through leaves. Mia's light caught a shape long scaled, moving fast through the underbrush. "Ethan," she screamed. He turned, his flashlight dropping. "Run!" They sprinted, branches snapping at their faces, the hiss chasing them. The truck was in sight when the ground shook, a low rumble like the earth waking up. Mia tripped, her hand landing on a small bone, smooth and warm. She shoved it into her pocket, panic overriding sense. They reached the truck, slamming the doors, and Mia floored it, tires spinning in mud. They camped a mile away, too shaken to drive the dark roads. Their fire flickered, but the forest felt alive, eyes watching from the trees. The stars above were wrong, too bright, too many, moving in, spirals that made Mia dizzy. A hum rose, not from the wind, but from the ground, ancient and angry words she couldn't grasp. "What's that?" she whispered. Ethan's face was grim. "The woods, they're not empty." People said the chemical spills did some things. Mia remembered the story spills from factories in the 1960s. Rivers running red, animals dying. Locals swore a snake. The peninsula python grew huge, its eyes glowing, its body twisted by toxins. Hikers saw it, heard it, felt it, watching. One man, a hunter, in 1980, wrote of a creature in the trees, bigger than any snake, smarter than any man. He vanished, his rifle found bent in half. Sleep didn't come. Mia dreamed of the church, the altar dripping blood, a voice chanting, "Return it." Ethan woke shouting, saying a figure in a black cloak stood over him, its face hidden, its hands cold. They packed at dawn, the bone in Mia's pocket heavy, the knife in Ethan's burning his skin. Back in Cleveland, the curse followed. Mia's photos showed shadows that weren't their eyes in the trees, a snake coiling in the bus. Her blog posts wrote themselves, words like they see appearing in drafts. Ethan's knife seemed to move, found in different pockets, always warm. His car crashed, a wheel locking on a clear road. At night, they heard hisses, saw shapes in windows that vanished when they looked. Mia mailed the bone back to Helltown's rangers, with a note begging forgiveness. Ethan tossed the knife into a river, but it was on his nightstand the next day. The bad luck eased, but the dreams didn't stop. Mia saw the snake, its eyes like stars, its voice a hiss, "You're mine." Ethan heard chants, saw cloaks in his mirrors. Helltown's horror is layered. There's the gothic gloom of the church, its rituals dark and secret. A girl, Sarah, vanished in 1975, last seen near the steeple. Her ghost wanders, her cries in the fog, her hands cold on those who linger. The cemetery holds her grief, stones whispering of lives cut short. The cosmic dread is heavier. The forest feels alive, its trees watching, its stars judging. Locals spoke of spills waking things, entities from beyond, their voices in the leaves. The stars over Helltown don't twinkle, they pulse, part of a universe that sees humans as ants. A camper in 1995 saw shapes in the sky, huge, shifting, like smoke with minds. He fled, leaving his tent, and never spoke of Helltown again. The raw horror cuts deepest. Footsteps crunch in empty woods, leaving no tracks. The bus's doors slam, its seats warm, as if just sat in. A hiker in 2005 saw a snake drag a deer, its roar shaking the trees. Another heard chants from the church, saw cloaks vanish at dawn. Helltown is a scar in the forest, beautiful in its ruined mossy stones, silent streets, a church standing defiant. But at night, it turns. The shadows move, the stars glare, the ground hums with something old and angry. Visitors leave shaken, their voices low, their stories wild. It's wonderful, they say, meaning the fear, the awe, the touch of something. Beyond Helltown doesn't just haunt, it hunts. Mia never returned. Her photos sit in a locked folder, too heavy to share. Ethan avoids woods, says the stars look wrong. Helltown waits, its trees alive, its ghosts awake, its sky watching forever. Story 6, Plummer's Noose in Bannack. Outlaws eternal, hunting the wild heart of Montana, where the mountains stand like silent judges and the wind carries a lonesome cry, lies Bannack, a ghost town carved from gold and blood. Born in 1862, when prospectors struck gold along Grasshopper Creek, it roared to life as Montana's first capital. Saloons glowed with lantern light, hotels bustled, and miners gambled away fortunes. But Bannack was lawless. Gunfights erupted in the dust, thieves roamed, and justice was a rope. Sheriff Henry Plummer, a man with a silver tongue and a dark heart, led a gang of outlaws, robbing and killing until vigilantes caught him. Hanged in 1864, his body swung from a gallows, his eyes glaring at the crowd. The gold dried up, and by the 1940s, Bannack was empty, its buildings sagging, windows dark, streets silent but for the creak of wood and the whisper of the past. Bannack's horror is a tangle of gothic vengeance, cosmic judgment, and raw fear. Plummer's ghost rides the streets, a noose still tied around his neck, his boots echoing on empty boards. The stars above burn cold, watching like eyes of a universe that doesn't forgive. Miners spoke of digging too deep, waking things in the earth, things that hum with ancient anger. This is the story of Plummer's Noose, where betrayal breeds ghosts, and the night hunts the living. The sun was dipping behind the Bitterroot Mountains, casting long shadows over Bannack's crumbling streets. Clara, a history teacher in her early 30s, adjusted her backpack, her notebook filled with sketches of old towns. She'd come to Bannack for a weekend trip, drawn by its tales of gold and outlaws. Beside her walked Nate, her younger brother, a mechanic with a love for adventure, his camera slung around his neck. It was early November, the air crisp, smelling of pine and dust. This place was the Wild West, Nate said, kicking a pebble down the dirt road. Sheriff Plummer ran it like his personal kingdom until they strung him up. Clara nodded, her pencils scratching out the shape of the Mead Hotel, its windows like empty eyes. He was a crook, leading bandits while wearing a badge. The vigilantes didn't mess around. Nate grinned, snapping a photo of the hotel's sagging porch. Think his ghost's real? People say he's still here, looking for revenge. Clara laughed, but her eyes scanned the street. Ghosts are just stories we tell to feel less alone. They started at the jail, a squat building with rusted bars and a heavy door. Inside, the air was cold, smelling of iron and damp wood. A gallows stood in the corner, its rope frayed but sturdy, swaying slightly, though no breeze stirred. Clara sketched it, her pencil catching the noose's curve. "This is where they hanged him," she said, her voice low. January 10th, 1864. Plummer begged, but they didn't listen. Nate aimed his camera, the flash cutting through the gloom. As it clicked, a thud echoed from the back, like boots hitting the floor. Clara froze, her pencil slipping. What was that? Probably a rat, Nate said, but his hand tightened on his camera. They stepped outside, the sky now a deep purple, stars poking through like needles. The town felt heavier, the silence thick with unseen eyes. They moved to the hotel, its lobby a mess of broken chairs and faded wallpaper. A cracked mirror hung on one wall, reflecting their dim shapes, Clara's. Flashlight swept the room, catching a glint of small brass button, old and tarnished, lying in the dust. She picked it up, thinking it might have been Plummer's, and slipped it into her pocket. Nate didn't notice, busy photographing a staircase that led to darkness as they climbed the stairs. The air grew colder, their breaths clouding. A creak came from above, slow and deliberate, like someone pacing. Clara's light flickered, then steadied, showing only cobwebs and cracked boards. "Nate, you hear that?" she whispered. He nodded, his face pale. "Let's check it out." The upstairs hall was narrow, doors hanging off hinges. The creaking stopped, but a new sound rose, a low, rhythmic thud, like hooves on dirt. Clara's heart pounded. "That's not right," she said, her voice shaking, before Nate could answer. A voice cut through, rough and cold. "You took what's mine." Clara spun, her flashlight catching a shadow at the hall's end, a man, tall and lean, a noose around his neck, his eyes glowing like embers. His coat was old, his face hard, a badge glinting on his chest. "Plummer," Clara gasped, stumbling back. Nate grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the stairs, but the door at the bottom slammed shut. The air turned icy, smelling of smoke and leather. The thudding grew louder, hooves circling the hotel, and the voice came again, closer. "Give it back." Clara fumbled in her pocket, tossing the button to the floor. It rolled, stopping at the shadow's feet. The figure vanished, but the hooves didn't stop, echoing outside now, like a rider circling. They shoved the door open, tumbling into the street, the night air sharp against their skin. The hotel's windows glowed faintly, then went dark. "We're leaving," Clara said, her voice trembling. "Not yet," Nate said, stubborn. "I want one more photo." The gallows. They crept back to the jail, the stars above too bright, too close, moving in patterns that hurt to watch. Clara swore she saw shapes in them, vast, formless, like smoke with minds. A hum rose from the ground, not wind, but words, ancient and angry, making her teeth ache. "Nate, this isn't safe," she said. He ignored her, stepping inside. The gallows loomed, the noose swinging harder now, as if someone had just stepped off. Nate raised his camera, but Clara grabbed his wrist. "Don't," she said, her heart racing. Too late. The rope snapped tight, and a shadow rose behind it, a man, his neck bent, his eyes burning. "Thieves," he hissed, his hand reaching. Clara screamed, pulling Nate out, the door slamming behind them. They ran to their truck, the hoofbeats chasing, the hum growing louder. They camped a mile away, too shaken to drive the dark roads. Their fire flickered, but the stars felt wrong, pulsing like heartbeats. Clara dreamed of Plummer, his noose tightening around her throat, his voice growling, "You're mine." Nate woke shouting, saying a rider stood over him, his face half gone, his badge glinting. They packed at dawn, the button gone, but its weight lingering. Back in Bozeman, the curse followed. Clara's sketches turned dark, gallows eyes, Plummer's face in every line. Her truck broke down, a wheel locking on a clear road. Nate's photos showed shadows that weren't their riders in the streets, a noose in every frame. At night, they heard hooves, saw shapes in mirrors that vanished when they turned. Clara mailed a letter to the Rangers, apologizing for the button, begging Plummer to rest. The bad luck eased, but the dreams didn't stop. Clara saw the rider, heard the hum felt the stars watching. Nate burned his photos, but the faces lingered. Bannack's horror is layered. There's the gothic vengeance of Plummer, betrayed by his own greed, his spirit bound to the gallows. His lover, a saloon girl named Eliza, wept as he swung, her cries now in the wind, her hands cold on those who linger near the jail. The cosmic dread is heavier, the stars over Bannack. Judge, cold and vast, part of a universe that punishes without mercy. Miners spoke of tunnels that bled, rocks that hummed, voices driving men to walk into the night. A prospector in 1863 wrote of a shaft leading to a void, where eyes bigger than moons watched. He vanished, his pick found buried in stone. The raw horror cuts deepest. Footsteps echo in empty streets, leaving no tracks. Doors slam in abandoned buildings. A camper in 1990 saw a rider gallop through town, his neck broken, his horse's eyes glowing. Another felt a rope around their throat in sleep, waking to Plummer's grin. Bannack is a wound in the mountains, beautiful in its ruined golden hills. Silent streets, a hotel, standing defiant. But at night, it turns. The shadows ride, the stars glare. The ground hums with something old and angry. Visitors leave shaken, their voices low, their stories wild. It's wonderful, they say, meaning the fear, the awe, the touch of something beyond. Bannack doesn't just haunt, it hunts. Clara never returned. Her sketches sit in a locked drawer, too heavy to share. Nate avoids mountains, says the stars look wrong. Bannack waits, its dust alive, its ghosts awake, its sky watching forever. Story 7. Lucy's Lace in Calico. Miner's eternal store in the sun-scorched hills of California, where the desert whispers of lost hopes and the wind carries a faint sigh, lies Calico, a ghost town born from silver's shine. Founded in 1881, it bloomed fast, with miners clawing the earth for riches. Over 3,000 souls filled its dusty streets, their picks ringing, saloons roaring with laughter, and a general store bustling with trade. But by the 1890s, the silver veins ran dry and the town withered. Families left, buildings sagged, and the desert reclaimed its ground, restored as a tourist spot in the 1950s. Calico's wooden facades stand proud, but its heart beats with secrets. The air hums with echoes of the past, and the shadows hold tight to their dead. Calico's horror centers on Lucy Lane, a woman who ran the general store with a steady hand and a warm smile. She stayed even as the town emptied, her store a beacon for stragglers. After her death, her ghost lingered, dressed in black lace, rocking in a chair that creaks alone. Visitors hear her hum, feel her tug on their clothes, see her face in dusty windows. But Calico's terror runs deep, dug too far, waking things in the earth, ancient forces that watch from the stars and whisper madness. This is the story of Lucy's Lace, a tale of gothic loss, cosmic dread, and raw fear that grips the soul. The sun hung heavy over Calico, its heat pressing down like a hand on the throat. Zoe, a college student studying folklore, adjusted her backpack, her notebook stuffed with tales of ghost towns. She'd come to Calico for a summer project, drawn by stories of Lucy Lane and the town's haunted past. Beside her walked Leo, her childhood friend, a photographer with a skeptical grin, his camera slung around his neck. It was July, the air dry and sharp, smelling of dust and sagebrush. This place was a silver boom, Leo said, pointing at the main street, lined with restored buildings, the saloon, the schoolhouse, the general store, hundreds of mines, thousands of people, all gone when the silver ran out. Zoe nodded, flipping through her notes. Lucy Lane kept the store going, even after her husband died in a mine collapse. They say she's still here, watching over it. Leo snorted, snapping a photo of the store's sign. Lane's Goods, faded but clear. Ghosts. It's just creaky boards and tourist traps. They started at the store, its wooden porch creaking under their boots. Inside, the air was cool but heavy, smelling of old wood and spices. Shelves lined the walls, stocked with replica goodscans, bottles. Bolts of cloth but dust coated the corners, hinting at the past. A rocking chair sat by the counter, empty but swaying slightly, as if someone had just stood up. Zoe sketched, her pencil catching the chair's curve. "This was Lucy's," she said. "People hear it rock at night, see her in a black dress." Leo aimed his camera, the flash glinting off a cracked mirror behind the counter. As it clicked, a soft hum filled the room, low and sweet, like a lullaby. Zoe froze, her pencil slipping. "Leo, you hear that?" "Probably the wind," he said, but his voice wavered. They stepped closer to the counter, and the hum stopped, replaced by a faint tug on Zoe's sleeve. She spun, finding no one, her heart racing. "Something touched me," she whispered. Leo's flashlight swept the room, catching a glint of small laced handkerchief, yellowed with age, tucked under a shelf. He picked it up, turning it over. "Old, but pretty," he said, slipping it into his pocket. "Don't take that," Zoe said, her stomach twisting. "They say taking things from Calico brings bad luck." "It's just a rag," Leo said, but his eyes darted to the door. The air grew colder, the light dimming though. The sun still shone outside. A creak came from the back, where a door led to a storage room. Zoe's flashlight flickered, then steadied, showing only shadows. "Let's check the schoolhouse," she said, eager to leave. The schoolhouse was small, its desks carved with names, its chalkboard cracked, but bearing faint words. "Be kind." Zoe sketched the board, while Leo snapped photos. As his flash lit the room, a giggle echoed, high and childlike. From the back, Zoe's heart jumped. "That's not wind," she said. Leo nodded, his face pale. "Let's go." They stepped. Outside, the sky now a deep orange, stars poking through like eyes. The town felt heavier, the silence thick with unseen watchers. They moved to the Maggie mine, a dark tunnel boarded up but oozing cold air. Zoe's light caught a sign, warning of collapse, but the boards were loose, as if inviting them in. "Miners said they heard things down there," she said, her voice low. "Voices, not human." Leo scoffed, but his hand stayed on his camera. As they turned away, a violin's wail cut through the air, soft and mournful, coming from the store. Zoe's flashlight swept back, catching a shadow in the window, a woman in black lace, her face pale, her eyes empty. "Lucy," Zoe gasped, stumbling back. The violin stopped, and a voice whispered, clear and cold, "You took what's mine." Leo grabbed Zoe's arm, pulling her toward the street, but the store's door slammed shut, trapping them inside. The air turned icy, smelling of dust and flowers, like a grave. The rocking chair moved faster, creaking loud, and the shadow stepped closer, her lace dress trailing. "Give it back," she hissed. Zoe fumbled in Leo's pocket, yanking out the handkerchief and tossing it to the floor. The shadow paused, then faded, the door creaking open. They ran, the desert night swallowing them, the violin's wail chasing. They reached their car, parked at the town's edge, and Zoe floored it, tires kicking up dust. They camped a mile away, too shaken to drive the dark roads. Their fire flickered, but the stars felt wrong, too bright, too many, moving in spirals. That hurt to watch. A hum rose from the ground, not wind but words, ancient and guttural, making Zoe's teeth ache. "What's that?" she whispered. Leo's face was grim. The mines. They dug too deep, woke something. Zoe remembered the tales, miners finding strange rocks that pulsed, tunnels that led to voids. One man, Silas, wrote in 1885 of a shaft where eyes in the dark watched, bigger than stars. He vanished, his journal found in the sand, scrawled with warnings. They wait. Sleep was impossible. Zoe dreamed of Lucy, her lace dress dripping dust, her voice begging, "Stay with me." Leo woke shouting, saying a woman stood over him. her hands cold, her eyes black. They packed at dawn, the handkerchief gone, but its weight lingering. Back in San Bernardino, the curse followed. Zoe's sketches turned Darklay's eyes, Lucy's face in every line. Her car broke down, a tire shredding on a clear road. Leo's photos showed shadows that weren't there, women in windows, a chair, rocking alone. At night, they heard humming, saw shapes in mirrors that vanished when they turned. Zoe mailed a letter to the Rangers, apologizing for the handkerchief, begging Lucy to rest. The bad luck eased, but the dreams didn't stop. Zoe saw Lucy, heard the hum, felt the stars, watching. Leo burned his photos, but the faces lingered. Calico's horror is layered. There's the gothic loss of Lucy Lane, her heart broken when her husband died, her spirit tied to the store where she waited for him. Her grave lies behind the church, unmarked, her lace dress, her only marker. Her hum echoes on moonless nights, her hands tugging at those who linger. The cosmic dread is heavier. The desert feels alive, its stars judging, cold and vast. Miners spoke of tunnels that bled, rocks that hummed, voices driving men to walk into the dark. The stars over Calico don't twinkle, they pulse, part of a universe that sees humans as dust. A camper in 1990 saw shapes in the sky, huge, shifting, like smoke with minds. He fled, leaving his tent, and never spoke of Calico again. The raw horror cuts deepest. Footsteps crunch in empty streets, leaving no tracks. Doors slam in the store. The chair rocks alone. A tourist in 2005 felt a tug in the schoolhouse, turning to see a girl's ghost, her eyes empty. Another heard a violin in the saloon, glasses clinking, but found only dust. Calico is a scar in the desert, beautiful in its ruined golden hills, wooden facades, a store standing defiant. But at night, it turns. The shadows hum, the stars glare, the ground pulses with something old and angry. Visitors leave shaken, their voices low, their stories wild. It's wonderful, they say, meaning the fear, the awe, the touch of something. Beyond Calico doesn't just haunt it, holds. Zoe never returned. Her sketches sit in a locked drawer, too heavy to share. Leo avoids desserts, says the stars look wrong. Calico waits, its dust alive, its ghosts awake, its sky watching forever. Story 8, Jerome's Grand Haunt, Cliffs of Madness and Love, perched on the steep cliffs of Arizona's Verde Valley, where the wind howls like a broken heart and the earth hums with secrets, lies Jerome, a ghost town once dubbed the wickedest town in the West. Born in 1876 from a copper boom, it roared with life miners, gamblers, and dreamers packed its streets. Saloons glowed with raucous laughter, a grand hotel hosted wild nights, and a hospital patched up broken bodies. At its peak, 15,000 souls called Jerome home, their picks striking deep into Cleopatra Hill. But by the 1950s, the mines closed, the crowds fled, and the town shrank to near nothing. Today, it's a quirky artist haven, but its past clings tight. Buildings teeter on the cliffs, their windows dark, their walls whispering of betrayal and loss. Jerome's horror is a weave of gothic romance, cosmic dread, and raw terror. The Grand Hotel, a looming stone giant, holds ghosts of lovers and suicides. Their sighs in the creaking floors. Nurses from the old hospital wander, their hands cold from surgeries gone wrong. Miners spoke of digging too deep, waking things in the rock, vast, uncaring forces that watch from the stars. This is the story of Jerome's Grand Haunt, where love turns to madness, and the cliffs hide terrors that never sleep. The sun was sinking behind Cleopatra Hill, painting Jerome's cliffs in shades of blood and gold. Leela, a writer in her late 20s, clutched her notebook, her pen ready to capture the town's eerie charm for a travel blog. She'd come chasing stories of Jerome's haunted past, drawn by tales of the Grand Hotel's ghosts. Beside her walked Sam, her older brother, a musician with a guitar case slung over his shoulder, skeptical but curious. It was late October, the air cool and sharp, smelling of dust and pine. This place was wild, Sam said, pointing at the main street, lined with stone buildings and wooden shops. Miners, outlaws, even bordellos. They called it a sin city. Lila nodded, her pen scratching out the Grand Hotel's outline, its windows glinting like eyes. The hotel's the heart of it. People hear screams, see shadows, nurses, lovers, miners all stuck there. Sam grinned, strumming an imaginary chord. Ghosts. It's just old pipes and drunk tourists. They started at the hotel, its stone walls towering over the street. Inside, the lobby smelled of old leather and wax, its chandelier dim, casting flickering shadows. A grand staircase led, 2 dark halls, and a bar sat quiet, as if waiting for drinkers long gone. Leela sketched the staircase, her pen catching its curve. They say a woman jumped from the top floor, she said. Lost her lover, couldn't take the pain. Sam adjusted his guitar case, his eyes scanning the room. Sad, but not spooky. As they climbed the stairs, the air grew colder, their breaths clouding. A door at the end of the hall creaked, half open, revealing a room with a sagging bed and a cracked mirror. Leela's flashlight swept inside, catching a glint of small silver locket, old and tarnished, lying on the floor. She picked it up, opening it to find a faded photo of a woman, her eyes sad. This must be hers, Lila said, slipping it into her pocket. Don't take that, Sam warned, his voice low. You know the story stakes something from Jerome, and bad things follow. It's just a trinket, Lila said, but her hand shook. A low moan echoed from the room, like wind in a tunnel, but human, pained. Lila's heart jumped. Sam, you hear that? He nodded, his face pale. Let's check the hospital. The old hospital, now a ruin, sat down the hill, its windows boarded, its walls stained. Inside, the air was thick with dust and antiseptic, though no one had worked there in decades. Broken gurneys lay scattered, and a rusted scalpel glinted in the corner. Lila sketched the hallway, while Sam's flashlight swept the walls, catching graffiti. They watched in faded red. As his light moved, a shadow darted across, too fast, too tall to be theirs. What was that? He whispered. Before Leela could answer, a voice cut through, soft and cold. You took what's mine. Leela spun, her flashlight shaking. The shadow stood at the hall's end, a woman in a nurse's cap, her face pale, her hands stained red. Her eyes were empty, her voice a hiss. Give it back, Lila screamed, dropping her notebook. Sam grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the exit, but the door slammed shut, the lock clicking. The air turned icy, smelling of blood and flowers. Like a surgery gone wrong, Lila fumbled in her pocket, tossing the locket to the floor. The shadow paused, then faded, the door creaking open. They ran, the night air sharp against their skin, the cliffs looming like giants. The hospital's windows glowed faintly, then went dark. We're leaving, Lila said, her voice trembling. Not yet, Sam said, stubborn. I want to see the mine entrance. They hiked to the edge of town, where a boarded-up mine shaft gaped like a mouth. The air was cold, oozing from the dark, and a hum rose, not wind but words, ancient and guttural, making Leela's teeth ache. This isn't right, she said, her heart racing. Sam's flashlight swept the boards, catching a carved symbol, a circle with eyes. Miners said they found weird stuff down there, he said. Rocks that moved, voices that weren't human. As he spoke, a scream tore through the night, high and desperate, from the hotel. Lila's light swept back, catching a figure in a window, a woman in a white dress, her hair wild, her hands pressed to the glass. That's her, Leela gasped, stumbling back. The scream came again, joined by a thud, like a body hitting the floor. Sam grabbed her, running for their car, parked at the town's edge. The hum grew louder, the stars above too bright, too close, moving in spirals that hurt to watch. Lila swore she saw shapes in them vast, formless, like clouds with minds. "What's that?" she whispered. Sam's face was grim. The mines, they dug too deep, woke something. They camped a mile away, too shaken to drive the dark roads. Their fire flickered, but the stars felt wrong, pulsing like heartbeats. Lila dreamed of the nurse, her hands cold, her voice begging, "Stay with me." Sam woke, shouting, saying. A woman stood over him, her dress dripping blood, her eyes black. They packed at dawn, the locket gone, but its weight lingering. Back in Phoenix, the curse followed. Lila's stories turned dark nurse's eyes, the woman's face in every word. Her car broke down, a tire shredding on a clear road. Sam's photos showed shadows that weren't there, women in windows, a scalpel glinting alone. At night, they heard moans, saw shapes in mirrors that vanished when they turned. Lila mailed a letter to the Rangers, apologizing for the locket, begging the ghosts to rest. The bad luck eased, but the dreams didn't stop. Lila saw the nurse, heard the hum, felt the stars watching. Sam burned his photos, but the faces lingered. Jerome's horror is layered. There's the gothic romance of the hotel, where lovers met in secret, their affairs ending in blood. A woman, Clara, jumped from the top floor in 1920, her lover lost to a mine collapse. Her ghost wanders, her sighs in the wind, her hands cold on those who linger. The cosmic dread is heavier. The cliffs feel alive, their stars judging, cold and vast. Miners spoke of tunnels that bled, rocks that hummed, voices driving men to walk into the dark. A prospector in 1900 wrote of a shaft leading to a void, where eyes bigger than skies watched. He vanished, his tools found buried in stone. The raw horror cuts deepest. Footsteps echo in empty streets, leaving no tracks. Doors slam in the hotel, beds shake in empty rooms. A tourist in 2005 felt a hand on their throat in sleep, waking too. A nurse's grin. Another heard screams from the mine, saw shadows crawl up the cliffs. Jerome is a scar on the cliffs, beautiful in its ruined stone walls. Vibrant shops, a hotel standing defiant, but at night, it turns. The shadows moan, the stars glare, the ground hums with something old and angry. Visitors leave shaken, their voices low, their stories wild. It's wonderful, they say, meaning the fear, the awe, the touch of something beyond. Jerome doesn't just haunt, it claims. Lila never returned. Her stories sit in a locked folder, too heavy to share. Sam avoids cliffs, says the stars look wrong. Jerome waits, its stones alive, its ghosts awake, its sky watching forever.